Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Private Eyes. I'm Bari.
And I'm Jen.
Today, we're going to be talking about clients. Usually, we talk about the subjects of our investigations or the investigation itself or something else. But this time, we're talking specifically about a certain kind of client. And of course, we are changing names to protect the innocent, or in this case, guilty. And these are special kind of clients. They are special because they have ulterior motives. In other words, they're calling us under the guise of watching their spouse or partner because they think they're cheating, but really, they are the ones that are doing some kind of misdeed.
And we're babysitting.
Essentially, yes. Yeah. They're hiring us to be babysitters, which is fine. Totally fine by me.
Sure, I'll be an expensive babysitter. I mean, you know.
Exactly. And it's like we are very results driven. When we have an investigation and somebody calls us and they're upset and it has to do with their spouse and everything about their life, the whole trajectory from this point forward, the direction is hinging on whether or not this person is cheating. We are pouring our heart and souls into that investigation.
Absolutely.
So if you're not telling the truth, if you're leaving out important details and just overall, misleading us, then we're not going to get the outcome that we want. And you're not going to get the outcome that you want because you're not really telling us what you would hope that outcome would be. And it's going to blow up in your face and you're going to get caught and it's not going to be pretty.
And as you said, we are so results driven that as an investigator, when we're sitting there, we could start putting signs together and we realize something seems fishy or something feels good, and we can determine between the two.
Yeah, our experience allows us to be able to, sniff out a situation. The spidey senses go off that maybe something isn't right. But where? Where is that something not right? So how can you spot one of these clients? I mean, sometimes
you don't.
right out the gate, you don't. Because they're not really any different initially from a client that doesn't have a different motive than what they're calling about. So usually they'll call, they'll tell me their story, we'll have a consultation, and, they might cry, they might really have a compelling story as to why, and things that are happening in their life, as to why they believe that they're being cheated on.
Right, and they make us feel like, oh my God, we need to help you.
Yes, every case starts off that way. I mean, the first thing we want to do is help that client and we want to have a good outcome.
Right.
So from the get-go, it's not very clear. And I have to take everything with a grain of salt. I have to trust my client. And we prepare an investigation. Correct. We strategize based on the information that they give us. So why would you lie? Why would you sabotage your own investigation, spend the money, do all of these things only to have a lousy outcome or make us spin our wheels trying to figure out, well, why are we not seeing what this person, is so desperate about? They are just so confident that this person is having an affair. I'm like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Why am I a lousy investigator?
That's what I was going to say. You start feeling like you're doing a bad job. Did I miss something? Like, what's going on here?
Right. And this happens a lot more often than you would think. And I think as time goes on, we've definitely gotten better at snuffing those out. We've definitely caught on to some clues as to, how their behavior is different from a client who really is wanting to know what's happening. Yeah. So like an example would be how many times, and I know you get so pissed off because I get so freaking pissed off. I get so pissed off. And this is like one of the number one signs to me that something isn't right. Like we'll do a day of surveillance. We're not really seeing anything yet. There's no action. There's no cheating. Everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I go to call my client to give them an update and the phone just rings. Or they want to be emailed. I email them. 2 hours goes by, no response. I'm thinking like, if this was my life, I have that phone next to me and I'm not budging from it. Like everything else can wait. I'm paying My life is on the line. I want to know exactly what's going on. It's like, I can't wait for this investigator to call me. Why aren't they calling me more?
You know, this gets me livid.
I know.
I mean,
you hate it.
If I'm spending this money, I'm having my phone next to my hip.
Right.
And I'm answering it. I'm looking at my emails. Like, how do you not answer your phone when we're trying to like tell you something?
And that's how a traditional normal client behaves. They're like, can you call me? Can you call me after this? And usually I have to say, like, simmer down, like we got to get settled. It's very fluid. Investigations are, they're constantly moving. And we'll call you when we're settled and we've done our research and we have a good sense of what's going on.
Or when we're out there and we actually have some kind of activity. And it could be them not cheating, but hey, they left, they went to this place.
I always want to give a client an update.
Yeah, and they're not just they're not answering.
And in this case, they don't answer. So, comparing them to a client that really wants to know if their spouse is cheating, they really believe in and they're really invested in the investigation. These people are like, apathetic. They don't answer their phone. They don't respond to an email. Hours goes by. I'm not sure what to do. You're telling me, hey, nothing's going on, or I'm seeing that nothing's going on. And I'm like, do I stay here? Do I go? What does this client think is going on? And it's crickets. Crickets.
And most of the time we're doing these jobs at night and, we're getting into those late hours. It's 11, it's 11:30. Oh, it's close to midnight. Hello, what do you want us to do? Where are you?
I know. We've had clients that have literally had us hanging on until like the wee hours of the morning. And there's nothing more frustrating than that, especially if you're not getting any results and you already are getting a sense that something isn't right. But I don't cast them away just for that one move. There's other things that they do, like flat out lie to us. Like we've had situations where I've said, in our initial consultation, so tell me about your lifestyle. Tell me about the lifestyle of the person who's cheating on you. What are the things they do in a day? Do they go to the gym? Do they do this? Do they do that? And when we're on the job, it's completely different. Or we have clients that have essentially already checked out and they really don't have a clue what their partner does all day long, any day. And I'm kind of like, do you talk? Like, how do you not know? Like,
so
do they
why
have
are
like
you even
a
getting
favorite store? What are you doing?
Why even get an investigator at this point?
Right.
Just get a divorce.
And it gets to a point where the investigation is ongoing. You're telling this person that you're telling your client that you're not getting, any evidence of any kind of cheating. And then, it was probably BS because they're just like, okay. And like, that's the end. And maybe we'll hear from them again and maybe we won't. And that's what we'll talk about later. There's repeat offenders. Or sometimes, like I said, we want to do a good job and we are trusting that they're giving us the right information. And, look, we're human beings. I mean, we might be a little smarter than the average bear when it comes to like sniffing things out and trusting our senses and our intuitions. But there's people that are really successful manipulators. And I'm not going to say I wasn't like duped a time or two. I definitely was.
Yeah. I mean, it happens.
So I have this story from a case that I did for years. Like this went on for years. And that is not uncommon where we are watching someone for a client that goes on for an extended period of time. We might do a couple days. They take a break for a while. I'll hear from them in a year. And it's the same old story again.
Yep.
So in this particular case, there was this client. And again, we're changing names. This client named Sam. Now, I first started working with Sam back when I was working as an investigator for somebody's company. I was their investigator. And my boss, my mentor, was like, oh, this client is great. He pays me in cash. He's just great, and he wants us to watch his wife, and I need you guys to do it. He thinks that, she's cheating on him with her therapist. Now, the backstory of this is this
sounds
client,
like a Sopranos episode.
This client had a very compelling story. He was his first marriage, his wife's second marriage. She happened to have been a widow, and she was not married very long before her first husband passed away. So this guy really didn't have a chance to do anything wrong in their marriage. Like, he was an angel. He was the perfect husband to that point, and they had 3 kids together. And our client was just kind of like, I don't ever feel like I'm measuring up. I'm just feeling really insecure. And maybe it's nothing, but I feel like it's something. We're not intimate. We're not this. We're not that. And okay, story makes sense. I'm feeling bad for this guy, So we go out, we watch her, and she doesn't cheat. Follow her to the city. She goes to the therapist, and nothing happens. And we're like, great. Okay, so that was fine. So we asked us watch her for a couple more days. She's going out with friends or doing a girls' night. At least that's what she told them. And that's exactly what we saw every single time. Never met a guy, never was with a woman, just with her friends, having a girls' night, nothing nefarious going on at all. So I thought I just felt like this guy just is really insecure. Story made sense.
Yeah.
And so, of course, we take a break from the investigation for a while and we don't hear from him. And at this point, my boss had retired. I took over the business. I started my own business. And it wasn't until about a year or so in, I get a call from my old boss, and he says, hey, do you remember that client, that guy Sam? I was like, oh, yeah. I remember him, the widow, blah, 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 the young kids. And he says to me, well, he wants to do an investigation. He's like, you should do it. He's got a lot of money. You should do that case. And I said, okay. He's like, but the weirdest thing about it, Bari, I never met him. Like, he would never meet me. He's like, that was the only weird thing. He's like, maybe you'll meet him. I used to be like, hey, Sam, you owe me money. You want to come by the office? And he'd be like, no. I will. I don't want to come to your office. I'll leave it at my office. The guy owned a local business. He's like, I'll leave it at my office. It's on the desk in an envelope. I'll leave the door open. You just go in and pick it up. And my boss was like, this guy's great. But, I would go. Sure enough, I'd show up. He wouldn't be at the office. The money was left there. He would never meet me.
So weird.
Like, I know,
That's
it's totally weird. Totally weird. And I'm thinking, like, what does this guy have to hide? So anyway, I call him. We get same old story. I'm not feeling secure in the relationship. There's no intimacy. There's this, there's that. I definitely think that she's having an affair. I don't know with who this time, but something's going on. So I say, all right. So sure enough, we do a couple of days of surveillance and we get the same old story again. But now the calls are happening a little more frequently, and he's, asking at the very last minute. He would call me and say to me, Bari, I think it's going to happen tonight. I think she's going to cheat. She says she's going out with her friends. I don't think she really is. She's going to the city. She's taking the bus there, and they're supposed to be going to all these places. He's like, it's just not adding up. She's coming home really late. Can you do this job tonight? He's like, I know it's last minute. I really need you to do it. And I was like, it was my birthday. And I had dinner plans, and I tell my husband, I'm like, oh, that client Sam, he wants us to watch his wife tonight. She's going to this city. And my husband's like, oh, do it. It's money. It's great. Go ahead. He's good for it. I'm like, okay. So we go do the job. I bring my husband. He's great at logistics. I get on the bus with her. I'm following her on the bus.
He's a trooper, man.
He is. And then my husband is following the bus in our car. We get there. She gets off at Penn Station. I get off at Penn Station with her, and she gets in a cab. And I'm like, shit. But I was lucky. I mean, this couldn't have worked out any better. I get a cab right after her.
No way.
I get into the cab, and I say to the driver, I'm like, you got to follow that cab. And this cab driver's like, oh, this is just like a movie. I love it. I'm like, shit, it is just like a movie. I mean, it couldn't have worked out any better. So then I'm telling Julie, my husband Julian, I'm telling him where we're going. And we land, we get her, and we watch her all night. And what do you think happened?
Nothing.
Every single thing she said she was going to be doing, she did. She met a bunch of girlfriends. They went to like this one bar.
Girls' night.
Yeah. They went to a jazz bar. They did all these things. So like 10 outfit changes later, here we are, home late, no result. And I'm like, I'm doing a bad job. I must be doing something wrong. This guy is convinced that she's cheating. Been watching her. It's like 3 years now, and we haven't caught her. And then things started to get a little more weird. So I would be driving down the street, and I knew what this guy looked like.
Okay.
Because, I'm an investigator.
Right.
And I would like pass his car because he lived locally. I would drive by, I'd see his car, and all of a sudden I'd get a call from him. And I'd be like, that's kind of weird. I just passed this guy. I'm like, is he following me now? Like, and he'd be like, oh, can you watch my wife tonight? I think something's going to happen. I definitely think so. I'm like, are you sure this is like what's happening. And you know that when you're dealing with clients and it's something intimate like this, they don't want to tell this story 100 times, so they get comfortable talking to you as their investigator.
Yes.
They want to keep using you, no matter what the results are, because, you're there to help them. And he just kept sucking me in. Like in my gut, I just felt like she wasn't cheating. And I'm like, okay, this is his problem. But then like things would get weird. I'd go to the restaurant like he asked me to. I'd watch her. I'd see her through the windows. She's with all of her girlfriends. Nothing is going on. And he'd be on the phone. I'd call him, give him an update, and he would answer. So that's not he seemed like he was interested in wanting to know what was going on. He was always like quick to respond every time I called him to give him an update. And I said, Sam, here we are, same thing. And he'd say to me like, Bari, I really just don't know what to do. Like, she's got to be cheating on somebody else, right? You have sex with your husband, right? Like you don't. And I was like, okay. That conversation is going in a direction that it should not be going. Yeah. He's like, what do you think about, like, is it bad if I got a prostitute? I mean, I have needs also. And I'm like, all right, I'm an investigator. I ain't a therapist and I don't do couple stuff. Right. So like this is like getting a little weird. So then the investigation was over for the night. And I said to him, Sam, you owe me some money. You got to take care of it. Okay, I will. Yep, right away. Couple of days will go by. He's not calling me to watch her. I'm thinking, okay, so he is satisfied right now. Nothing was happening, but I need my money. Yeah. So I'd call him, no response. And I'm like, this son of a bitch. So what did I do? Something that my old boss wouldn't. I marched over to the office. I knocked on the door and I walked in. I said, Sam, what'd you make me come here for? You know I'm here. And he's like, I know who you are. So he knew who I was. I came for the money. He gave it to me. And then everything was chill for about a year. Another year goes by, and the cycle starts all over again.
No way.
Mm-hmm. And I do surveillance. Nothing happens. He doesn't pay me. But this time it got a little more weird. And I said, you didn't pay me. I'm like, do you want me to swing by your office? I can make it real easy for you. He's like, no. He's like, you know what? The 7-Eleven on, Rigby Street? I'm like, yeah, I know that 7-Eleven. He's like, I'm going to leave the money there for you in a cup of hot chocolate. What? I was like, this is the weirdest freaking thing I ever heard in my life. So I tell my husband, and my husband's like, what? I'm like, yes. He's like, he's good for it. Just go do it. Go do it. Like, Julie, my husband doesn't care. He's like, just do it.
Go make that money.
Yeah, I know, right? So I go to the 7-Eleven. It's at night. It's dark. I'm looking around. I'm looking at the neighboring parking lots. I'm like, I just had like a weird feeling. I'm like, I'm looking for his car. I don't see it anywhere. I'm like, there's no way this is like happening. So I walk into the 7-Eleven and I look at the guy at the counter and he's like, I think this is for you. And I said, no. Sure enough, it's a coffee cup. I literally open the coffee cup. It is filled with hot chocolate as well as a Ziploc bag with like thousands of dollars in it. So the guy literally put the money in a cup of hot chocolate. So I felt like he was watching me.
I thought he was going to give you the money and a cup of hot chocolate. He put the money in
a cup of hot chocolate. I think he was starting to get like his kicks from like watching these weird interactions, like between me feeling like he was like watching me on the road, like seeing me. I didn't even know he knew who I was at that point, and it was just getting super weird. So I got my money. I didn't hear from him for a while. And what do you think happened?
He called you again.
He called me again. But this time, again, another last minute job. And for years, like this guy, Sam, would say jump. I'd be like, how high? I'll go do the job. It wasn't because of the money for me. Do you know what it was, why I jumped?
Because you wanted the answer.
I felt like this will be the one night I can't do it. And it'll be the one night that she cheats.
Yes.
And meanwhile, at this point, I couldn't even count how many times I watched her. And I wanted to get her because he was so good. He made me feel like I had to be missing something. I'm doing something wrong. And I wanted to get her. So I said, all right. Meanwhile, I have a house full of women. I used to do like a game night. That's another story. So I was hosting and I had all these women in my house. And I said, guys, I have to leave you. I just have to run to a couple towns over. I got to do this job. This client just called. He's a pretty important client, and I got to get this. I got to get this for him. And they were like, well, what's the situation? Now, I never tell people any specifics about the case. But I will give generalities about it.
Right.
And I proceeded to tell them the history of this guy and what was going on. And I said, I just haven't gotten her cheating. And I feel like something isn't right. I think
something's wrong.
I was thinking that what I was started to think to myself was, he's doing something and I'm watching her for him because he is doing something. And honestly, I thought, he mentioned the prostitutes in a conversation or two. I'm thinking, okay, maybe he's doing something online, some online pornography. Maybe it's gambling. Maybe it's drugs. Right. But I don't give a shit if this guy's shooting heroin into his arm, to be honest. I don't care. I wanted to get this answer. And that's not affecting anybody. And I was just like, so I'm telling all my girlfriends this. And then one of them goes to me, Bari, what if he's like molesting one of the kids? And I was like, shit, why did you say that? Because it's something I didn't think of. And it could be right because she had 2 children with her first husband. That not that people do not abuse their own biological children. Of course they do. But just made it more possible for me that 2 of these kids were not biologically his. And maybe something weird was going on. She wanted to know and make sure. He wanted to make sure she was out of the house and not coming home anytime soon.
Yeah.
So I go to the job and my girlfriend is just ringing in my ear. And sure enough, I go to the restaurant. She's there with her friends. I call him. He doesn't answer right away. I text him. I say, look, she's here. I'm like, you sure you want to waste the money? Like, you sure you want me to watch? I'm like, look, the history shows, look, if I showed up here and she wasn't here with the friends and something was off, I'd say like whatever. And he's like, no, I want you to stay. I want you to stay on her. And I was like, okay. And I'm feeling frustrated at this point because now I'm feeling like this is BS. There's something going on. I have a house full of women. I need a life too. And I'm not getting anywhere with this. And something is wrong. So I'm texting him what's going on. I texted him that they're paying the bill. No reply. No reply. And he's usually very responsive. No reply. And she's getting in the car. She's leaving. She's dropping off a girlfriend. I'm texting him every move. I'm like, okay, we're in this town. We're getting close to home. She just dropped off a girlfriend. We're on our way.
Right.
That was the last thing I texted him. Now, normally I text him, she's turning down the street. And I didn't do that this time. I don't know what compelled me not to do it. And I was just kind of like, screw it. I'm not. I was like kind of annoyed.
Well, you already told him.
And I said, she's on her way. Right. We just dropped off her friend. This friend lives in this town. Based on timing, you should know when she's rolling in.
Yes.
And I went home. And I told my girlfriends, nothing happened. We all went home. And about a half an hour later, I get a ranting text from him. Why didn't you tell me? She was pulling down the street. Why didn't you tell me? Like, everything's ruined. And I was like, everything's ruined. I'm like, what is this guy talking about? I'm thinking like, if this was normal, it was another night of not cheating and he should be happy that she came home.
Yeah.
What does me telling him that she's pulling into to the driveway, what effect does that have on anything? The outcome was still the same. She didn't cheat. So that sealed it for me. I knew that something was wrong.
Yeah, he probably got caught with the prostitutes.
He got busted. I don't know what he got caught doing, but all I do know, I know something happened because the next day I happened to be like driving past his office and her car was in the parking lot. And she, for years, and he lives in an area on a busy main road. I would drive past that office all the time. Never saw her car there. She did her own thing, taking care of the kids, whatever. So something had gone down that night before. And I don't know what it was. But over the years, I ended up meeting people that kind of knew them. I never told them about my situation and working with Sam or
so
the
just
family.
From overhearing conversation.
Yep. And they everyone had the same sense about it. The guy was a jerk. He was a weirdo. And they actually ended up getting a divorce.
Good.
Yeah. So I never got to know what
happened.
Yes. Why
something wasn't right.
Yeah. Something was way wrong. So,
well, I hope she's happy with her new life, and I hope he wasn't doing anything to the kids.
Yeah.
And he's probably still out
I
there
don't
with
think
the
he
hookers.
was. I don't think he was.
It's probably the prostitutes.
I thought it was prostitutes or gambling, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Or it could have been gambling and a prostitute that night.
Yeah. Could have been all those things.
I mean, when he's dumping money and hot chocolate.
Yeah, he didn't care.
Well,
I want to be that rich one day that I just want to put my money in a cup of hot chocolate.
It's so weird.
Maybe tea. Make it different.
Well, I had a case that I'd love to share where it, just like you said before, it starts out fine and until you start getting a couple days into it. I'm sure you remember this case. You called me up and you said, "Hey, Jen, can you come down to the office? I want to talk to you about this woman." So, you're like, "Hey, listen, she can't come in, but she wants to meet you at a local college. Can you go meet her in the library there?" So I said, "Yeah, sure." You said, "Go check her out, see what she's about, see if she's crazy," because it just seems a little weird,
I'll preface
right?
it for just a minute, just to back that up. She had called us, and you know what happened. She called us that her husband was cheating.
Right.
Very compelling story. Everything checked out. She had a very busy schedule with school, and that's why. And I couldn't leave the office, so I had asked you to go and would you go meet her, pick up the check, whatever money she's paying with, and get the our agreement signed and get the deets, get all the details, check her out.
Thank you for adding that in. So I go over there and I walk in the door, and some woman is sitting, on a couch, and she stands up and she says, "You must be Jen." And I said, "Yes, I am." So we start walking. I thought we were going to the library. She said, "Follow me." And we went into a classroom, an empty classroom. And she shut the door. We went into the corner of the classroom.
Porno movie.
It was just so weird already.
Going?
And she had an accent, like a very strong one. I'm not exactly sure where she was from. So it was a little hard for me to understand her, but I got through it. So we sit down and she starts telling me about her husband, that he's cheating and cheating and cheating and all this stuff. And she's giving me, I knew, relax, I'm in for the long run here, because she's just going to go on and on. I'm trying to interrupt her to ask her questions, but she just has to get it out. So, all right, get it out. So she continues to tell me, one example is my husband paid for me and my children to go to Aruba. And when we went there, my kids could eat everything that they want, but my husband said, "You can't eat anything." She said, "I cannot eat anything. I was only allowed to have oatmeal every day." And I'm thinking, what is wrong with this guy? He's very controlling, And she was a fairly attractive woman, decent figure. I'm like, okay, maybe he's really just trying to make sure that she stays the way he wants her. And she said, I came home crying. I lost 4 pounds. And then I get home. She says, "I want my kids to eat whole foods, fruits and vegetables and good meats." And my husband says, "No, we have pasta.
Didn't she want to go to the fanciest supermarket?
Yeah,
that's the issue.
Around here, it's this Whole Foods, and she wanted just to go to the fancy, expensive, shopping, food stores, and he said, "No, pasta. Every night I'd have to have pasta. Make the pasta." So and she said, and one time, he was talking to this woman, and I walked over, just to kind of see who he was talking to, and, figure maybe he would introduce me or whatever. And I go walk over there, and he turns around and he looks at me and he says, "Get out of here." I said, "Oh."
I don't mean to laugh, because at this point, we thought that this guy was a real jerk.
"Get out of here." I was almost peed my pants when she screamed. But so I asked her, well, what does he like to do? Does he go to the gym? She says, "No, we don't belong to any gyms. We have a gym at home. He could work out at home. I could work out at home. But I don't know." I said, "All right, we could do this for you. I know you spoke to, Bari," and all of a sudden she pulls out this eyeglass case and she pops it open. And I never seen so much money that can fit into a case, where she's basically in tears that this guy doesn't give her money, makes her eat oatmeal. I'm like, this guy's really... So here she is with all this money, and she starts counting it out. here's 1,000, here's 1,000, I'm like, how many thousands you got in there? She's like, well, here's 4,000. She said, do you need more? And I said, no. She was stealing money from her husband. Definitely. So I said, okay, so we're going to do this job. We'll start tomorrow, start here. And now we're on the case. And it's just like you said earlier, is I don't see anything going. He's supposed to be leaving at this time. He's supposed to be doing this. Nobody's leaving. Nobody's doing anything. I called you.
She left.
Yeah, she left. I said, no, I don't see him. But she just left.
Right.
So, you call her.
Right. So I think like a day had gone by or two. We gave it a chance. And she said he's going to leave. He never left. She would leave. And she didn't come back. He went, picked up the kids from school, dropped the kids off to school, and she was gone all day, whether she was like going to school or whatever. So I call her. Now, meanwhile, she was really hard to get a hold of. Right. And I think a tip-off should have been that like she was using a burner phone. Like she went out and bought herself because she felt paranoid, which is fine. And sometimes we recommend that. But she already had this burner phone. I didn't have to recommend that she go and get a burner phone. She already had one. And I said, he didn't do any of the things. Like, he never left. He didn't leave the house. I'm like, we need to, tomorrow we're going to do this again. And, you're telling me he's got these plans to go to the city. I'm going to need to get in touch with you, And she said, well, I'm going to be at the gym. And I said, I thought you guys don't belong to a gym. And she's like, oh, I go to the gym. I have a trainer there. I have a personal trainer. And I told you that, and I thought you went nuts.
I went nuts. I'm like, she lied to me. One, red flag. She's not answering her phone. Two, red flags. She's lying. She says they don't go to a gym. They have a gym at home. So now she has a personal trainer. So now I'm sitting here. I'm like, ding, ding, ding. Hello, I'm babysitting again, Bari.
Right, and when she needed to meet us for more money, she wanted you to meet her at a restaurant, like right near the gym where she was working out.
Yeah. So now she calls up and she says, hey, my husband is taking our son to a soccer game. Mm-hmm. Can you, do surveillance on him? Please record anything he does, especially if he's talking to a woman. Mm-hmm. So I go out there, I get video of him. He's talking to like 3 or 4 other guys, and there's one woman there. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this woman is a girlfriend of one of the guys, a wife of one of the guys, but we got the film. Right. And you called her, you told her all about it.
I think he said 2 words to this woman, if anything at all, not even. And it was nothing strange or, unusual about the encounter. He's there with a bunch of other guys around them. And she just went nuts. She's like, well, what did he say to her? Did anything happen? What did she say? And I said, I don't know. Let me ask my investigator.
So I'm like, Bari, what does he think? This woman is with all these guys. He didn't even talk to her.
I know.
But, she was on this kick. And at the end of the day, it just kept going back to her being with this trainer and all this crap.
We started to get more suspicious than she probably actually was about her husband. And honestly, Jen, like we see this a lot where, sometimes someone's unhappy in their marriage. Yes. They're not getting money or the gravy train stopped for some reason. And for some women, that's very important. They have a lifestyle they want to keep up with. They want to go to the Whole Foods. They want to have a fancy breakfast on their fancy trip. They want all of these things. They want the Chanel bag. And then in real life, sometimes business isn't great. And the husband has to pull on the reins a little bit.
Yeah.
And as soon as they hear that, they're like, I'm out. And they're looking. And they almost are hoping that, not that they're almost being purposefully deceitful to us, but they really don't think that their husband is cheating. They really don't have any evidence of that happening. They are hoping that they are doing something they shouldn't be doing so that if they want to leave the marriage or
they can say,
start some shit, they're not the bad guy. Yeah. Right. And that we find that very often.
And that woman she didn't call us back anymore after that. Nope. So now we knew. Yeah. Liar.
Right. And they also get testy when we start asking them questions. And then that's how we know. And, I can only be nice for so long. Our job is hard enough. I don't need any outside interference. I don't need a lie that's going to shift my focus or direction somewhere where it shouldn't be. I don't need to be in a dangerous situation, or my investigator's in a dangerous situation because someone is bullshitting us.
Right.
So I get mad. That client gets dropped. And if she called back, I'd never work for her again anyway.
Fired.
Yeah.
So it's that time. Email of the week. So this one comes in and it says, "Hi there. I think my wife has hired a private investigator to watch me. I'm not 100% sure. I've been noticing the same person following me around to the gym, work, doctor's appointments, and even my poker game. How can I find out for sure?"
Okay. I have the obvious, and our listeners are going to hate me for this, but it is what it is. Ask them. I would be like, pull over to the side of the road, get out of my car, and say, doot, 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 knock on the window. "Excuse me. Do I know you? Do you know me? Are you following me?" And that's it. And see how they respond. Because that's what they do to us.
Exactly what they do to us. And I mean, come on. Just ask them. Because at that point, they're going to feel like jerks. And they're going to back
And they're going to
up.
get lost. You're not going to see them for a few days.
Or, you
and
know
that's
what,
how you know.
and you know the other trick that you could do is when you're driving, make 3 lefts, 4 lefts. And if they keep following you in a circle, somebody's following you.
Right. Like, I wouldn't say confront anybody. I mean, if you're a woman and like some creepy dude's like following you, whatever,
Yes.
no, you don't pull over. But that's when you do the counter surveillance. Just like you
Yes.
said, Jen, there's a couple techniques you could do. You could pull over to the side of the road and see if they pull over, make a bunch of left turns like you're driving in a circle. If they're doing the same thing, that's how you know somebody's following you. And you've confirmed it.
There you go. Hope that helps.
So that's a wrap. Case closed. Thank you so much for joining us on Private Eyes today. We had fun.
So much fun. And we want to hear from you. So make sure you send us an email to be featured in one of our future episodes. You can email us at theprivateeyespodcast@gmail.com. See you soon.
Bye.